Parvati Bhagini, Hari Om.
Hari Om Bhagini.
You can start.
Yeah. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitaamrutavarshini Bhagavati Ashtadashaadhyayini Amba Tvamanusandaddhami Bhagavad-gite Bhavadveshini Namostute Vyasavishala-buddhe Pullaravindayata-patra-netra Yena tvaya bharatatailapurnaha Prajvalito jnanamaya pradipaha Prapanna parijataya Stotravetraikapanaya Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamrutaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Dugdham Geetamrutam Mahat Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnau Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona Tata Jayadratha Jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashvathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavairananadi Kaivartaka Keshavah Parasharyavachas Sarojamamalam Geetarthagandhottkatam Nanakyanakakesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajjana Shatpadairaharaha Pepiyamanam Muda Bhuyad Bharata Pankajam Kalimala Pradhamsina Shreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulanghayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramanandamadhavam Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudramarutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam Navidussura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Hari Om.
Dhanyavadaha Bhagini. नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तं तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मिष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So, in these two shlokas, 65 and 66, Krishna gave a final summary of the Gita, summarizing the sadhana of Karma Yoga in the 65th shloka and summarizing the sadhana of Jnana Yoga in the 66th verse. So we saw the essence of Jnana Yoga in the last class, right, which was 15 days back, presented in a very unique language by Lord Krishna as Sharanagati. It's a very important term because I understand Sharanagati means different, very different concepts in Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, etc. Right? So here we will see what Sharanagati is. We should remember that this Sharanagati talked about in the 66th verse is a total internal change or attitudinal change caused by the knowledge of the Atma. So in Jnana Yoga, a person pursues Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam and learns about his true nature as the Atma. This understanding brings about a change in his attitude towards the world and towards himself. This attitudinal change alone is called Sharanagati. Externally, there will be no difference at all in the lifestyle. Even after Jnanam and Sharanagati, even as a Jnani, one will continue in the world following the life of values. So values can never be given up before Jnanam also. They can never be given up after Jnanam also. So values will continue, duties will continue as per the designation in the society. Whether one is in the Brahmacharya Ashrama, Grihastha or Sannyasa Ashrama or Vanaprastha Ashrama. Just as Lord Krishna said in the 3rd chapter, look at me Arjuna, even though I am Bhagavan. How important this message. And a Jnani myself, when I'm functioning as your driver, right, as your charioteer, I'm following the duties of a driver. That I am Bhagavan, that I am Avatara, that I am a Jnani will not make any difference. Therefore, we should remember values will continue as before. Duties will continue as before. Contributions will also continue, right? It will be exactly the same as during the stage of Jnanam and Karma Yoga. The difference is only internal, born out of my knowledge of my real nature. That I am different from the body, mind, sense complex, and I am the Atma Tattvam which is blessing them. When I learn to claim myself as the Atma, then my attitude towards the body-mind complex will change. Before knowledge, I looked upon the body-mind complex as myself or as owned by myself, which is either ahankara or mamakara I had with regard to body-mind complex. Because of that, this ahankara and mamakara, the ownership and controllership, got extended to the family, possessions, etc. It is that ownership and controllership which is silently dropped in the mind. A jnani tells himself, he doesn't tell anybody else, right? I don't own anything, including the body-mind complex. I don't control anything. If I'm not the owner and controller, who is the owner and controller? He remembers the 10th chapter and the 11th chapter where Vishwarupa Varnanam and the glories of the Bhagavan are discussed, right? Bhagavan as creator, Bhagavan as sustainer, Bhagavan as resolver. So Bhagavan is the owner of everything, right? The renunciation of ownership and controllership reduces ragadvesha, which are primarily responsible for anxiety, stress, worry, fear, etc. We never worry about something, if you notice, which we don't own. Whenever something happens, say anywhere else in the world, we are great philosophers and talk, right? We are able to bring Gita very easily. Life means all these ups and downs are normal. All these things are normal, right? It's okay. These will happen. It will come, go. Because I don't have mamakara. Only when ahankara and mamakara comes, the laws of the universe are forgotten. The laws of karma is also forgotten, right? So law of the universe is called samanya niyamaha. Law of the karma is called vishesha niyamaha. The whole world is governed by Samanya and Vishesha Niyamaha, which are controlled by Bhagavan and Bhagavan only. I am allowed to use the body and mind for some time, taken for lease from the God by giving what? Prarabdha. Prarabdha currency, right? Prarabdha is the price. I take a few things for my use. I can use it for a limited period of time. And when the time comes, Bhagavan will take away everything which I claim as myself. This particular wisdom we lack because of ignorance, right? And we misappropriate Bhagavan's properties. And for misappropriation of Bhagavan's properties, we will have to pay the price. And the price is worry, the price is samsara, right? The price is sorrow, price is fear, right? All these are the price that we pay for misappropriating Bhagavan's properties. Jnani uses everything, but all the time he remembers, like the Shruti in the music. Bhagavan is the owner. He can take away anything. Whenever he takes away, I will not make a complaint. I will myself return with a note of thanks. Thank you, O Lord, for allowing me to use these people, this house, this land, this body, the good memory, the brain, the speech, everything. All these things you have gifted to me. I will use them as long as I am allowed to use, but always I remember I don't own any of them. I don't control also. As Swamiji says, right, even our physical body, right, we can take care of it by what? Dieting, by exercising, right? Ensuring that, we are hygienic, we are very careful, etc. But what happens beyond that is not in our hands, right? So that's why in Tamil there is a very nice, saying. Anything we say, in fact, those days they will not even allow us to talk about tomorrow's menu today. Now we can't manage like that, right? So when you speak, I remember the older generation people used to, immediately scold us saying, no, don't do this, right? You shouldn't talk about it, right? And they have a saying, "Piழைத்து கடந்தால் பார்த்துக்கலாம்." That means if we are around tomorrow, we will see. So anything if they have to say, they will add that disclaimer, right? So thus, when I don't know what will be the condition of my body tomorrow, how can I claim controllership? Dropping these two is called antara sannyasa. Ahankara, jnani surrenders, right? He surrenders mamakara, he surrenders ahankara, and raga dvesha becomes simple preferences, right? Swamiji always says, Make it all preferences and recommendations. Don't command, right? Even when the children grow beyond a certain age, right? Just make it your preference. If they listen, fine. Otherwise, leave it to their own life, right? Their own prarabdha. If these things happen as I planned, wonderful. Karmani eva adhikaraste. I have done such things, hoping it will give me a good result. So whatever happens, it is according to Samanya Niyama and Vishesha Niyama, both of these put together. So as even I surrender these four enemies, Dushta Chatushtayam, Ahankara, Mamakara, Ragadvesha, my worries come down radically. And that is what we see as FIR reduction, right? That's the indication of Antara Sannyasa. So Sannyasa doesn't mean Kashaya Vastram. Internal renunciation of Aham, Mama, Raga and Dvesha. Right? So what Vedanta says is once these four obstacles go away, right? Ananda Bhagavan need not give. My very own nature is Sachidananda Swarupaha. So I need not get Ananda. I have to only remove the obstacles. Right? When the window is closed and the curtain is put, the sunlight doesn't come in. Once you remove the curtain or the blinds and you open, right, the dark windows, light will automatically come in. You don't have to do anything to bring the light in, right? Similarly, Atmananda is our real nature, and if world need not give me Ananda, family need not give me Ananda. This is the ignorance that is blocking all of the Ananda, right? So once the four Ahankara, Mamakara, Raga, Dvesha, born out of self-ignorance, right, is removed through Jnana Yoga, right, then I am immediately able to revel in my Ananda Swarupa. So in chapter 2, 56th verse, right, we saw Dukkeshvanu Vignamanaha Sukheshu Vigata Sprihaha Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Stitadhir Muniruchyate. One who is free from craving amidst pleasures, whose mind is unperturbed in troubles, and one who is free from attachment, fear and anger, he is called Stitadhi Munihi, right? A sage of firm knowledge. Yes sarvatran abhisneha tattat prapya shubhashubham nabhinandati na dveshti tasya prajna pratishtita. He is unattached everywhere. Neither does he rejoice nor does he hate on facing favorable as well as unfavorable situations. This knowledge is extremely firm. Shubham will come, Ashubham will come, right? Na prahrishyet priyam prapya nodvijet prapya cha priyam. Sthirabuddhira sammuraha brahmavit brahmani sthitaha. See, all these are what we have seen. This is in chapter 5, 20th shloka. These things will be coming and going. Jnani witnesses all of these maintaining the balance, right? A certain calmness. Samadukka sukhaswastaha samaloshtasma kanchanaha tulya priya priyodhiraha tulya nindatma samstutihi. 14th chapter, 24th verse. The wise man abiding in his self, right? He treats everything like his attitude towards a clod of earth or a stone, right? Or gold. It is all the same. He is the same in desirable as well as undesirable situations. So the reactions, these will come down as even aham, mama, raga, dvesha come down. Once they come down, ananda will have to increase because ananda happens to be my real nature. Right? So therefore Lord Krishna said, which we completed in the last class, aham tva sarva papebhyah. All the misappropriated properties hand over to me first. In fact, you might now start relating to a particular sankalpa, right? Where we say Hiranyagarbha Garbhastham Hemabijam Vibhavasoho, right? All of those we say Ananta Punya Palatam Atashantim Prayachame. And then if you notice, Idam Upayanam Sadarakshinakam Satambulam Samba Shiva Pritim or whatever, right? Kamamanaha Tubhyamaham Sampratate Na Mama. Idam Na Mama, right? I am actually taking what you have given me and offering it back to you, right? And then we say, of course, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, and Brahmarpanamastu. So we have to make sure that when we give, this is not our property that we are giving back to God. Actually, it is God's property that we are giving. So disclaim the wrong claiming, right? Then you will find there is no scope for shoka at all, right? So next time you hear idam namama, it should immediately strike you that this is why we say idam namama when we are giving even dakshina, right? So whether people, living people, right? Also gatasuna, he does not worry about, right? Agatasuna, those who have not yet gone also, he doesn't worry about them, right? So therefore, some have gone, some are going, right? There is a march past happening. So where is the reason or scope for worry, right? So when we see the obituary column of others going, we don't feel bad about it. But when somebody who is connected through mamakara, right, that is when the raga dvesha hits, and then we have a problem, right? So even the thought, the imaginary death starts worrying us, right? So in fact, to get over this, only in Sandhya Vandanam, regularly the children are taught right from a young age to say Yamaya Dharmarajaya Mrituve Chantakaya cha Vaivasvataya Kalaya Sarvabhuta Kshayaya cha, and then you pray to Yamaya, right? Yamaya Namaha, right? Yamadharma Raja. So this is the reason, because we don't want to have raga dvesha towards anything in this world, whether it is a virus or whether it is something that we really like, right? So therefore Krishna said that this is the only way to be free from sorrow. Without that, sorrow is unavoidable. Fear is unavoidable. With this, the main Gita teaching is over. Now we've got some winding up shlokas which we will enter into. Idam tena tapaskaya, idam tena tapaskaya, na bhaktaya kadachana, na bhaktaya kadachana, na cha shushrusha vachyam, na cha shushrusha vachyam, na cha mam yobhyasuyati, na cha mam yobhyasuyati. Here Lord Krishna talks about the qualifications on the part of a student to study the Bhagavad Gita. If these qualifications are there, then the Gita study will be able to give maximum benefit. The degree of qualification will determine the degree of benefit. So here Krishna mentions fourfold qualification. Now in Vedanta Shastra, we saw sadhana chatushtayam, viveka, vairagya, Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti, Mumukshutvam, right? Discrimination, detachment, discipline, sixfold discipline, and desire for moksha. These are the four generally enumerated, but Krishna here presents the four qualifications in a different language, right? So number one is tapaha. Tapaha literally means a life of discipline or life of balance, right? A balanced lifestyle. By balanced lifestyle, what we mean is a lifestyle in which one gives importance to all the four purusharthas. Generally, a person appreciates the first two goals of life and dedicates entire life for that, namely artha and kama, earn and enjoy, right, all the time, right? So they are important, but what Veda says is artha and kama, while being important, yes, earn, enjoy, but you have to balance with the other two purusharthas, dharma and moksha. By dharma, what we mean is pancha mahayajnaha, you have to give importance, right? And satsanga is also very, very important, right, for moksha purushartha. One who balances his life between artha kama and dharma moksha, right? So at least in the initial years, we should have exposure to the teaching through satsanga, etc., right? So generally we think that dharma moksha is only Bhagavad Gita, etc., and only after we retire, we need to, take up Gita, etc. No, it's a very strong misconception among youngsters. It is not so at all. And that is why, in fact, I did that 1 hour session on, is it a post-retirement hobby, right? The reason is, from that, there are a lot of ideas that I put together. Each one of you can take what is relevant for you to speak to the society in which you interact, whether it's children, teenagers, just, professional starting a corporate life, or somebody who is really struggling in the middle of a very, very high strung career, you can choose to share some of those snippets, right? So it is not that you have to come to it only after retirement, but it is something that we get exposed early on so that we can use it effectively in our life, right? So we also saw about never overindulge in anything. Yukta ahara viharasya. We saw about tapas in the 17th chapter. We talked about kaika tapas, manasa tapas, vachika tapas. We also learned about 4 filters of speech, right? We saw all that. So tapaha means balanced life is one qualification. The second qualification is bhakti, very, very important. Accept the scriptures as a valid guide for our life. Accept the scriptures as the guidebook, right? So, the relevance of God, life has to be God-centered, right? Indicated by our pradakshina. In the morning, we do puja to remind us about God. We get up with the thought of God, right? So, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara, Krishna says. Why? Because in the ICU, there is nobody around you. It is only when you're alone, this relationship is the only relationship which will give you strength, whether it is difficult situations or whether it is difficult medical condition. So, bhakti is very, very important, right? So, during karma yoga, we get a general idea about God, that he is Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Karta, etc. Right? Then during Upasana Yoga also, I don't know much. But when I commit to inquiry through Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam, right, then I understand the true nature of God or Ishvara. Therefore, bhakti towards any Ishtadevata is very important during the initial years. Right? The third one is Shushrusha. Shushrusha normally means service, right? But here that is not the primary meaning. Here it is the Sannanta form, Shrotum Icha, Shushrusha. Shrotum means hearing, listening to the Guru, right? Desire to learn Gita from a Guru must be there, and it should be a sincere desire, right? In the olden days, we had to go to the Gurukula, serve the Guru. Service to the Guru is indicative of a desire to learn. Therefore, service becomes the secondary meaning of the word Shushrusha. So, primary meaning is to learn, desire to learn Gita from a Guru. This is the third qualification. And then the fourth and most important qualification is Anasuya. And Anasuya is non-judgmental, non-critical mind, absence of intellectual arrogance. Because especially if you are well-educated people, along with the education, sometimes instead of humility, the opposite comes, right? And people have intellectual arrogance. So I begin to judge the teaching of Gita with that arrogance, right? And then I pick up the wrong parts of the Gita and start criticizing, right? And we start passing judgments very early on with the limited intellect, right? Remember that it is the teaching of the Lord. We must have that intellectual humility to accept that maybe I could have been brilliant in the material world, but here is a teaching that Bhagavan gives, which I have to go through repeated Shravanam before it starts making meaning and the dots start connecting. That humility is required, right? So, with humility, when I read again and again, then I get the right message of Gita. So, for instance, Tasmat Yudhyasva Bharata. So, it doesn't mean that, Gita is teaching people to fight. I've heard a lot of people saying that, right? Arjuna happens to be a warrior and his Swadharma Anushtanam is fighting a war, right? It doesn't mean that Krishna says fight with wife, fight with children, fight with everybody. No. Here it is Swadharma Anushtanam for Arjuna, right? So Asuya means finding fault. So Anasuya means not finding fault. Therefore, humility or faith, right, in the validity of the Gita, right? Shraddha, you can call it Shraddha or Bhakti in Bhagavan. Both are very, very important, right? So, to emphasize the importance of these 4 qualifications, Lord Krishna uses a double negative language, right? What he wants to say is, you should not give the Gita, right? Or he says, Instead of saying you should give the Gita to that person who has these 4 qualifications, Krishna says if a person does not have these 4, don't give them the knowledge. Right? You can easily know a person's attitude when we speak for a few minutes, right? From the body language, expression, right? So Lord Krishna says, be careful and aware of this, right? So here in this shloka, idam na vachyam. Idam means this Gita teaching should not be shared, Arjuna. Never share this with another person if the person does not have these 4 qualifications, right? Very important. Atapaskaha means the one who does not have tapas. Abhaktaya, the one who does not have bhakti towards the Lord. Ashushushave, the one who does not have sincere desire to learn. Because some people want to just use Gita for quoting in management seminars so that they can have an additional feather in the cap, right? So using Gita for some other purpose. I thought I should narrate this incident to you all. Swamiji said this and I felt very sad, right? So apparently Swamiji, someone called Swamiji for a bhiksha and said that he is going to some foreign country, okay, for 3 months. And he said, when I go there, they will ask me about Hinduism. It will not be right for me to say I don't know. So I have to tell something. So you please tell me something for me to go and tell them. Therefore, what Swamiji said, how pained he must have been. He jocularly said this. He is not interested in Hinduism or Hindu scriptures, but he feels that he will feel bad when the foreigners talk about Hinduism. Therefore, he wants to learn not by attending Gita class sincerely or coming to, Swamiji's place and listening, but calling for Bhiksha, he wants to know that. That is not correct, he says. Tatviddi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. You should go to a teacher and learn, right? You should go to a teacher and learn, not for telling others, but it is for my own understanding, right? So na ashrushave, the one who is not desirous of learning for himself, right? So the one who criticizes, and Lord Krishna is talking about the type of life that person has like led here. So he has to have all the 4 qualifications, right? And not keep on finding fault with Bhagavan and Gita. Not only Gita saying, oh, Krishna, he had a lot of gopis, etc. No, that's not the right attitude, right? Very important. And we need not share Gita with such people. We can share with people who have these 4 qualifications. Especially in our over excitement, we might just catch somebody and start speaking about Gita, saying, I have learned so much, so I just want to share something with you. Just watch if they have all these qualifications, right? Continuing. Yaimam paramam guhyam. Yaimam paramam guhyam. Madbhaktishvabhidhasyati. Madbhaktishvabhidhasyati. Bhaktim mai param kritva. Bhaktim mai param kritva. Mame vaishyatya sanshayah. Mame vaishyatya samshayah. So Lord Krishna has given the Bhagavad-gita only for the well-being of the humanity. First, he gave the teaching through the Vedas, but after some time, people did not know the value of the Veda. Therefore, they forgot the message. And if you remember, Krishna in the 4th chapter clearly said, Saevayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhaktosi me sakacheti rahasyam ketaduttamam. Right? Very interesting. I am again reviving and teaching, right? Not because Krishna will benefit from that, but for the well-being and protection of the world. Therefore, whoever is responsible for the preservation and propagation of the Veda, Krishna says, they are all very, very dear to me because they are fulfilling my desire. I want Dharma to be in this world, and therefore whoever helps in the preservation and propagation of this Gita Dharma, I consider them as great and I admire them. This preservation and propagation of Gita happens because of the flow of the knowledge through Guru Shishya Parampara. Here in Gita, Krishna chose, what does it say? Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. You are my bhakta and my sakha. He is addressing Arjuna, right? So the propagation of Gita has happened right through because of Guru Shishya Parampara after 5,000 years after Mahabharata war, right? Because we know that somebody has calculated the date to about 3102 BC or so, right? So if we are able to read Gita now, it is because it has been preserved by the unbroken chain of Guru Shishya Parampara. Therefore, Krishna wants to congratulate all the gurus of the Gita in the tradition, and not only all the gurus. Gurus can be gurus only when he has shishyas, he or she. So Guru can't talk alone without disciples. So if the Guru talks that way, then there is a different problem without the shishyas, right? So Yatra shrotra na vartate kim kurvanti vaktaraha. This is a very beautiful shloka. It says kim karishyanti vaktaraha shrotra yatra na vidyate. Nagnak shapanake deshe rajakaha kim karishyati. Shapanaka means a religious mendicant, and Nagnak Shapanaka means the Digambara Jains, right? Who don't wear any clothes. So what can the washerman, right, do with a shop there in a Digambara Jain colony? So if the students don't come, what can the teacher do? Therefore, Krishna glorifies the gurus and Krishna glorifies Shishya also. Here it is Guru glorification. He is going to do Shishya glorification also. Therefore, he says, Yaimam Paramam Guhyam, whichever Acharya in the tradition Abhidasyati transfers this knowledge, communicates this knowledge, passes on this knowledge, Paramam Guhyam, the supreme secret knowledge, to Mad Bhakteshu, right? Here the word Bhakteshu represents the one who has got Bhakti as well as the other three values, right? We just covered them, right? So, always it is transferred from the Guru to the next Shishya, and he will never have arrogance. The Guru will never have arrogance, and my Guru will say it comes from his Guru. Therefore, my Bhaktim Krita, Guru also passes on this, and remembering the Adi Guru, right? That is why we say Sakshat Narayana himself, and the tradition we chant the shloka Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmad Acharya Paryantam, right? That is why we say every Guru remembers this Bhaktim Mai Adi Guru Kritva. Only if the Guru has Bhakti, he can talk about Bhakti to his disciple. Sachanacharya Mama Eva Eshyati Asamshaya. He will certainly attain liberation, Jivan Mukti as well as Videha Mukti. He will merge into me after his death. Right? So he will, yeah, there is a question here which I'm going to answer. So maybe we will wait till I come to the next verse. Okay. So this such a Guru will attain Jivan Mukti as well as Videha Mukti. Continuing, Nacha tasman manusheshu, Nacha tasman manusheshu, Kaschin me priya krittamaha, Kaschin me priya krittamaha, Bhavita nacha me tasmat, Bhavita nacha me tasmat, Anya priyataro bhuvi, Anya priyataro bhuvi. So this verse also is the admiration of the Guru, the propagator of Bhagavad-gita. So Lord Krishna says, other than this Guru, there is no other person in this world who is doing a greater service than this person who is sharing this knowledge. So whoever propagates the Gita is doing the greatest service and the dearest service to me, the original giver of the Gita. Therefore, he says, Anya priyakrittamaha manushyeshu nasti. There is no other human being who is doing a greater service or who is doing a dearer service to me. There are so many people who are doing service in other several areas, but this service of propagating Gita according to Krishna is the greatest service, right, done by the Gita Acharya Kaschit priyakrittamaha manusheshu nasti. Other than the propagation of the Gita, not only there is no other person of greater service now, in future also there will be no other person. Such a guru is very dear, right? Because Gita propagation is dharma propagation. Dharma is what sustains the entire universe. And when dharma is not there, Bhagavan has to come down. Dharma samsthapanarthaya. Right? So, Bhagavan's one avatara, extra avatara is saved if we have enough acharyas to maintain dharma. Only when no one does it, I have to come down and all the trouble of again reviving. Right? They are doing my job, therefore I am happy. So, Bhavita means in the future also there will be no person who will be dearer to me than the Gita propagator. When the Guru is admired so much, the Shishya may feel bad, right? So Krishna does not want to leave the students of Gita also, right? So he says, hoping that someday the students will also become potential teachers. They need not teach by doing webinar or going out or conducting class in public, right? Even if you find your neighbor, you can share, right? So now Krishna is going to divide the students into two types, the qualified students and the unqualified students. Krishna says, very, very important portion we should know, both qualified and unqualified students will benefit from Gita, right? Therefore, for the unqualified students, Bhagavad Gita Shravanam will serve as part of Karma Yoga, right? And for qualified students, right, it will serve as Jnana Yoga and it will give them Jnanam and Moksha. Therefore, Gita can be heard by all people, right? So, qualified or unqualified, right? That is what is said here. Continuing. Adhyeshyate cha imam, adhyeshyate cha imam, dharmyam samvadamavayoho, dharmyam samvadamavayoho, jnana yajnena tenaham, jnana yajnena tenaham, ishtasyamiti me matihi, ishtasyamiti me matihi. Those qualified students who study the Gita, yaha mama dharmyam avayoho adhyeshyate. Dharmyam samvadam, the holy teaching, right? Dharmyam, which is in keeping with the Vedas. Avayoho, the dialogue that happens between Arjuna and Krishna, that is me and Arjuna. That person has practiced jnana yajnena, right? What he does is the greatest puja to the Lord, which is called Jnana Yoga. So there are so many Vedic rituals. They are all called yajna. But if you compare those Vedic rituals and this Jnana Yajna, right? Here the fire is what? Right? The knowledge itself is the fire and the oblation is our ignorance in Jnana Yajna. Therefore, Krishna considers Jnana Yajna as the greatest Yajna. The 4th chapter talks about it. Shreyan Dravyamayan Yajna Jnana Yajna Parantapaha. So Gita study is the greatest form of puja. Gita students are practicing Jnana Yajna, and through that great Yajna Ishtahasyam. Here the word Ishtaha means worship. I am worshipped by the greatest Yajna called Jnana Yajna by the qualified students, right? Which will directly lead to liberation. So that is the highest form of yajna. They will receive the knowledge, assimilate the knowledge and will get liberation here now. Iti me matihi. This is my opinion. Then what about unqualified students? Shraddhavananasuyascha, Shraddhavananasuyascha, Shunuyadapi yo naraha, Shunuyadapi yo naraha, Sopi mukta shubhan lokan, Sopi mukta shubhan lokan, Prapnuyat punya karmanam, Prapnuyat punya karmanam. Here Krishna points out that the not so qualified people also can listen to Gita, provided they have minimum 2 qualification, right? So if these 2 qualifications are not there, they can't listen, right? So what are these two? Krishna says Shraddhavan. Minimum is Shraddha, faith in Ishvara, reverence, right, to God, and reverence towards Gita as the teaching of the Lord, right? So that's the attitude. Anasuyaha is attitude towards Gita. So which we have already talked about earlier. If a person is an atheistic person, does not have reference for the Gita, then he should not be given Gita. But if these two are there, he can be allowed to listen even if other qualifications like tapas, etc. are not there and does not matter. Therefore, he says, Shraddhavan, those who have faith in God and Anusuyaha, they can listen to this sacred text, right? Now, this is very important for us to note that, sometimes as Shiva has asked here in the question, so is it that we should not be giving this teaching to others, right, through channels, TV channels, YouTubes, etc. Right? Now, what Chinmayananda used to jocularly say is, such people will never listen to it in a systematic manner, so they will never be able to understand Gita in a nice, cohesive manner. So, even if they are sitting, it is not going to go through them, so we don't have to be worried about them, right? We do not have to go out of the way and call atheists and teach. That is definitely not advisable. That is what Krishna is trying to tell here, right? So, if we have Shraddha in Ishvara and Shraddha in Gita, we can definitely listen, right? So, even if the language is different, we can listen to Gita. There are many people who don't understand Swamiji's, Sanskritam or English. They just come and listen. They sit there. That is also fine, because that punyam itself will give chitta shuddhi, right? So, sopi muktaha shubhan lokan. Muktaha means freed from the papani, right? He is freed from all the papams. He will get punyam to go to the higher loka, which can be obtained only through big punyam, karma punyam. This person will get just the shravanam will give him punyam. Of course, this is glorification. We must remember that, and it has its significance, right? So this is the message of Krishna, saying that even if unqualified people are there, but if they have Shraddha and Bhakti, definitely they can listen and get punyam and go to higher loka. So now Lord Krishna wants to know Arjuna comes under which category of student. Therefore, he asks Arjuna, did you listen? And what type of student are you? Did you get the benefit of my teaching? Right? If, as Swamiji says, if tension is possible at all for the Lord, this must be the occasion, because Arjuna is a single student and his answer will decide what type of satisfaction Krishna will have. So he asks the question. Kacchidetat shrutam partha, kacchidetat shrutam partha, tvayekagrena chetasa, tvayekagrena chetasa, kachchidajnana sammohah, kachchidajnana sammohah, pranashtaste dhananjaya, pranashtaste dhananjaya. So, hey Partha, hey Arjuna, etat tvaya shrutam kaschit. It's a question mark. Kaschit, did you listen to my teaching? Ekagrena chetasa, with a concentrated, focused mind, or were you distracted, or did you doze off in between, right? One thing is, even in a large kind of audience, if few people doze off, others will be listening. Here Arjuna is single person. If he has dozed off, 100% of students gone for Krishna, right? So, Kashchit Ajnana Sammoha Pranashtaha. Did your delusion born out of ignorance go? Because what was Arjuna presented? If you remember, what was his state of mind? Nachatait vidmak kataranno gariyaha yadva jayema yadivano jayehu. In second chapter, 6th verse. And then later he said what in the 7th verse? कार्पण्य दोषोपहत स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्म सम्मूढ़ चेताः यच्छ्रेयः स्यान् निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेहं शादिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. Whether this Mahabharata battle is a dharma yuddham or a dharma yuddham, I have got a fundamental doubt. Please clarify regarding the ethical aspect of this, right? So Lord Krishna, through the teaching, he wanted to do two things. One, to remove the doubt regarding dharma, whether Mahabharata Yuddham is dharmic or adharmic. He wanted to solve the ethical problem. And Krishna not only wanted to solve the ethical problem, he wanted to solve the spiritual problem also. The spiritual problem of samsara caused by raga, shoka and moha. HAFD. You may remember, or you can go and revise. Helplessness, then anger leading to frustration, and then depression, right? So attachment to people, grief caused by separation, the delusion because of the grief is the fundamental problem of samsara. In this case, Arjuna's attachment towards Bhishma and Drona, just as we are attached to our family members and we have lot of emotional turmoil, here also it was the same reason. Emotional dependence was the cause for samsara. So thus Gita is an attempt to solve both the ethical as well as spiritual problems. So now Krishna is asking, is your ethical problem, right, whether spiritual problem is solved or not, whether the ethical problem is solved or not. Ajnana sammoha, delusion caused by ignorance with regard to dharma and adharma, pranashtahava, did it go away? Hey Dhananjaya, hey Arjuna is the question, and Krishna is waiting with his breath held down, right? Because if Arjuna says he's not clear, then as Swamiji puts it, we have to say Atha Navadashodhyayaha and start 19th chapter, right? So Krishna's decision to start 19th chapter will depend upon Arjuna's answer. So fortunately, Arjuna says, my doubt has been clarified. Arjuna uvacha, Arjuna uvacha, Nashto moha smritir labdha, Nashto moha smritir labdha, Tvat prasadan mayachyuta, Tvat prasadan mayachyuta, Stitosmi gata sandeha, Stitosmi gata sandeha, Karishye vachanam tava, Karishye vachanam tava. So Arjuna clearly replies, Nashto mohaha, my delusion regarding the dharma adharma issue with regard to the Mahabharata war is gone. Now I understand it is dharma yuddham. In fact, even before coming to the battle, we had already discussed in the forest for 13 years that this is a dharma yuddham. But I became emotional because of Bhishma and Drona's attachment, because of the emotional cloud. I understood dharma as adharma and running away from the battle as dharma. Now after your teaching, it is very clear, it is my swadharma. I have to do my duty. Therefore, mohaha nashtaha. As far as this spiritual teaching is concerned, with regard to spiritual wisdom also, Arjuna did understand the teaching. Therefore, with regard to that also, he has got the knowledge. But later we will see in Mahabharata, it's very interesting. On another occasion, Arjuna addresses Krishna saying that, oh Lord, you taught me Vedanta long before in the battlefield, and you know how much concentration I must have had at that time. Please teach me again. And Lord Krishna teaches once again. And that part occurring in the Mahabharata is called Anu Gita. Anu means the following Gita. Therefore, the Dharma Jnanam was complete, but the Brahma Jnanam was partial. Right? By inference, we can make out, right? So, Tavat Prasadan, by your grace, my delusion is gone. Sthitosmi gata sandeha. I have no doubt whether to fight or not. Therefore, Tava Vachanam Karishye. I shall follow your instructions and I shall fight the war, right? So, for the sake of dharma. With this, the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna is over. The dialogue was introduced by Sanjay. You must remember that. And therefore, Sanjaya, the observer or the reporter, comes and concludes. You must remember the background. When Mahabharata war started, Dhritarashtra was in the palace, being blind, and he does not know anything that's happening. Therefore, he asks Sanjaya to give a report. Vyasacharya gives him a special power to Sanjaya for a television kind of perception, right? So Vyasacharya gave a special power that Sanjaya could see what is happening in the battlefield, and seeing that in fact Sanjaya also gets Gita teaching. Right? So that is what he is reporting, and now Sanjaya is concluding this report to Dhritarashtra, which we'll see now. Sanjaya Uvacha Sanjaya Uvacha Ityaham Vasudevasya Parthasya cha Mahatmanah Samvadam imam ashrausham Adbhutam Romaharshanam. Sanjaya reports to Dhritarashtra, iti, in this manner, as shared in all these chapters, aham imam adbhutam romaharshanam samvadam shrausham. I heard the dialogue between Vasudevasya Parthasya cha Mahatmanaha. Right? So Vasudeva Putra Krishna and Partha's son, that is, Partha is Pritha's son. Kunti's another name is Pritha. Right? So Pritha's son and Vasudeva Putra Krishna. I heard this. Lord Krishna and Arjuna both are referred as Mahatmanaha here, right? As a common adjective. Because both of them were great in their own ways here, and they are listening to Gita, right? Therefore, he is also a great Punyavan. Arjuna is also a Punyavan, right? So, Adbhutam means wonderful, great teaching, right? A wonderful message. Roma Harshanam, right? Which gives great thrills, goosebumps, right? What we call the horripilation or goosebumps. So, he wants to convey his response or reaction, right? To listening of this teaching. He says, I heard this wonderful and thrilling dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Vyasaprasadat shrutavan etad guhyamaham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat katayata swayam. Sanjaya acknowledges the blessing of Vyasacharya. Because of that alone, Sanjaya could see what happened so far away from him. Therefore, he says, Vyasa prasadat, because of the grace of sage Vyasa, etat param guhyam yogam maham shrutavan. I heard the supremely secret and supremely sacred yoga from the Lord. Param means supremely sacred. Guhyam is supremely secret. Secret in the sense that this wisdom is not available in any material science. Whether you study physics, chemistry, or economics, it can help you live in certain situations, but it cannot help you face life situations. Therefore, it is a very rare teaching found in the scriptures. Therefore, Guhyam, the greatest secret and the teaching of the Gita, is generally called Yogaha. Yogaha is a generic word for the entire teaching of the Gita. It is not referring to any particular yoga here, right? So it is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Upasana Yoga. Whenever the same teaching comes from the Veda, the teaching comes from the Veda, the same thing is referred to as Dharma, which is a technical word, which means the teachings of the Veda, right? The entire Veda, whether it is Purva Bhaga or Anta Bhaga, the teachings are called Dharma, right? So Shankaracharya tells in the introduction, Pravritti Lakshanaha Dharmaha, Nivritti Lakshanaha Dharmaha. So the whole teaching is called Dharma, but in the Gita, the very same teaching is renamed as Yogaha. So that is what Sanjaya here says, and the ultimate source of this teaching is Veda only. He says, Yogeshwarat Krishna, that is a teaching coming from the Lord himself, given to humanity as a guide, as a manual, right? Exactly like these equipments come with manuals, etc. And without learning the manual, if we try to use the equipment without opening it, what will happen to the equipment? We will spoil the equipment. Similarly, Bhagavan has given us a user manual in the form of Veda, right? So mind is so complex as an instrument that Veda has given us this manual to make sure that we can handle this manam, which is an instrument. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. How to use the mind properly in this world. It is a teaching of how to live, right? So, how to live in this world, how to use myself. This teaching has come from the original creator, the manufacturer, Bhagavan. And he has given us this user manual, Gita, that is Veda originally, and Gita in the battlefield. Therefore, Yogeshwarat Krishna from Sakshat Bhagavan, who is the Lord of this course, right? And I heard directly from Krishna, sitting far away, I could hear because of Vyasacharya Prasadat, Vyasacharya Anugrahat, Sakshat Katayataha, right? Even the teaching was going, Arjuna was also listening, Sanjaya was also listening, right? Rajan samsmritya samsmritya, Rajan samsmritya samsmritya, Samvadamimam adbhutam, Keshavarjunayo punyam, Keshavarjunayo punyam, Krishyami cha muhurmuhu. Here Sanjaya says, when I go backwards and see how my experience was while I was listening to the teaching, what I feel, I want to share with you. My impression is that I'm extremely fortunate to have had this rare opportunity to listen to this teaching straight away from, shouldn't say the horse's mouth, from Bhagavan's mouth. Therefore he says, Imam Adbhutam Samvadam, Samsmritya, recollecting, rejoicing. When I play back, right? When I rewind, right? And look back, he's addressing whom? Sanjaya is addressing Dhritarashtra. Hey Dhritarashtra, remembering this again and again, Keshavarjuna Yoho, Punyam Sambadam, sacred dialogue between Keshava, the Guru, and Arjuna, the disciple. Krishyami cha muhurmuhu. I feel extremely happy and I rejoice intensely again and again. Continuing. Tacha samsmritya samsmritya, Tacha samsmritya samsmritya, Rupamatyadbhutam harehe, Rupamatyadbhutam harehe, Vismayo me mahan rajan, Vismayo me mahan rajan, Rishyami cha punah punah, Rishyami cha punah punah. So while rewinding, Arjuna mentally sees all parts of the teaching. Karma Yoga, Bhagavan's glory, Vibhuti Yoga, Vishwarupa Darshana, then Jnana Yoga, the values, right? And so many aspects of the teaching which pass through the mind of Sanjaya. And Sanjaya wants to pick up one teaching which impressed him the most, right? Like Sanjaya is looking back and trying to pick up one. He chooses the 11th chapter of the Gita, which is nothing but Vishwarupa Ishvara Yoga, a teaching which is unique in our scriptures, unique to Hinduism, a teaching which says that there is no difference between God and this Srishti, the world, at all. The entire world is the first avatara of Ishvara. Krishna does not use the word avatara, but he says the entire universe is my own manifestation. Therefore, if we change our attitude, we have got Ishvara Darshanam all the time. Without this attitude, we look upon Ishvara as somewhere, and therefore we think we have to go to Vaikuntha or we have to go to Tirupati and wait for 9 hours to, have a darshanam of the Lord. The whole attitude has to change when we look upon the world as Ishvara. So I think that Ishvara darshanam is the toughest one, but after learning the 11th chapter, if only I change my attitude, Ishvara Darshanam is the easiest one, because whatever I experience is nothing but the glorious manifestation of Ishvara. thus seeing the world as the very God's body. Tribhuvana Vapusham Vishnumisham Namami is one teaching, right? And we have assimilated, and it is the best medicine for the problem of samsara, attachment and aversion. So all the raga dvesha are because we differentiate the world as good and bad, and once I have got Ishvara Darshanam, everything becomes part of the integral part of the universe, right? So this is all God's drama, right? He is administering the law of karma, right? So Vishwarupa Darshana removes the double standards that we have with respect to ourselves, ahankara, mamakara, and what happens to others, right? So when we have no complaint against everything, that mindset is moksha, right? So continuous grumbling, mumbling is called samsara. So therefore, naturally, Sanjaya is thrilled by this unique presentation, and then he's so happy, right, to note this, that God is not somewhere but is everywhere. Very huge change in mindset, right? So therefore, Harehe Adbhutam Rupam Samskritya. Sanjaya says, I'm thrilled by this unique teaching. Here the word Ati Adbhutam Rupam is Vishwarupa Ishvaraha, seeing that or appreciating that, Hey Rajan, Mahan Vismayaha, I have got the greatest wonderment at the greatness of the teaching that you have given. It is not new, it is there in the Veda, right? So ultimately, I have benefited from this, right? So when somebody asks where is God, our attitude and our response should be where God is not. I just rejoice again and again. And Sanjaya concludes his final remark in the last concluding verse of the Gita, which I will just complete and take a few more minutes. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Yatra Partho Dhanurdaraha, Yatra Partho Dhanurdaraha, Tatra Shir Vijayo Bhutihi, Tatra Shir Vijayo Bhutihi, Dhruvani Tirma Tirmama. So here Sanjaya talks about the glory of Gita, pointing out that not only the Gita has blessed Arjuna, right? Not only the Gita blessed Sanjaya, it continues to bless the previous generation. It will continue to bless the generations which are to come also, right? So it will continue to bless all the generations that come, and it is presented by Vyasacharya for us. Vyasena gratitam purana muninam. Therefore he says, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha asti, in whichever part of the world Lord Krishna is remembered as Gitacharya, Lord Krishna is described in the Puranas, right? In the Bhagavatam as Bhagavan, and he has played several roles in the Avatara. But when he is remembered in this important role as Gitacharya, right? Krishna, and that is why we have so many pictures, right? And therefore Dhanurdaraha, Partha as Dhanurdaraha in the battlefield as Arjuna, he represents the Swadharma Anushtanam. As I said, for a Kshatriya, fighting a war is the Swadharma, right? So Gita says you remember your duties, right? And not just the rights. And if we remember our duties in life, that is represented by Arjuna, then wherever Arjuna and Krishna Acharya, the Gita teaching is there, and it will be naturally remembered. And if you remember Arjuna, Krishna, that teaching will come to the mind. And whoever remembers the Gita teaching not only remembers but attempts to follow to the extent possible, the life will be successful, and that such people, the family will also be a harmonious family without any difficulties, and there will be prosperity. Vijayaha, success will be there. Bhutihi, prosperity and wealth or growth is called Bhutihi. Nitihi means fairness, absence of double standards will be there, right? And all of them will be there. Dhruva, enduring wealth, enduring prosperity, enduring success, enduring fairness, everything will be there. This is Mama Matihi, this is my opinion. So let the humanity follow the Gita teaching. Let the earth be a place of peace, prosperity and happiness. Sanjaya's wish has come true. That is why even after 5,000 years, Gita is continuing, because we have a tradition in which the teaching is preserved. with this, Sanjaya's remark is also over, and the 18th chapter is also over. Bhagavad Gita is over. We'll read the concluding part. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Iti Srimad-Bhagavad-gitasu. Iti Srimad-Bhagavad-gitasu. Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam. Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam. Yoga Shastre. Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. Moksha Sannyasa Yogo Nama Ashtadashodhyayah. Moksha Sannyasa Yogo Nama Ashtadashodhyayah. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So just a reminder before I look at the questions, there is an optional assessment on 13 June Sunday at 8:30 p.m. not 6:30 p.m. Please note change in time. I think it's a nice set of questions which will cover all the 18 chapters. I would encourage each of you to just attempt. You don't have to be worried about what marks you get or anything. You will immediately get the answers along with the marks also. So tomorrow we will have the summary of the 18th chapter. So let me just quickly see if there are any questions, but we can take questions even tomorrow because I will be finishing the summary a little bit early, so we could take questions tomorrow. So do come prepared for it. Any plans to start Anu Gita? No. Okay. Not as of now. My ID, let me just put it up. You can write to Vedanta Satsanga, or you can write to sivaraman.rama@gmail.com. Both are okay. You can drop an email to either of these. Has anybody raised? Yeah. Yeah, Mohanaji, or unmuted now.
Namaskara, Bhagini. Will you be doing Gita Mahatmya?
Yes, I will. So tomorrow we will do a summary of 18th chapter. Then we will do an overview of Gita because I have to tie all the, the portions from different places and connect it with Vedanta. That will be one class. And then Gita Mahatmyam will be on the concluding day, which is on the 6th of June.
And I was thinking, because I have been with you from the beginning, it's been like my family. I see you every Sunday. I'm going to miss you. How do I keep, another question is, how do I keep this going forward? Otherwise, I have this problem. Unless I have a teacher, I don't do well. So that is my...
yeah, let me think about it, because Gita is something that we must always stay in touch. So let me see if we can organize a satsanga or something monthly once. We will try that, right? But you also please continuously listen to the recordings. And of course, if you are interested in attending any of the Upanishads, or I might start a Prakarana Grantha later, we can always stay in touch.
Dhanyavada, Bhagini, dhanyavada.
Anybody else has anything? Okay. So tomorrow we will meet same time. Dhanyavada.